In a dimly lit classroom of the renowned Galactic Academy, a group of shock-faced alien students stared at a hollow projection that shattered everything they thought they knew about humanity's role in the galaxy. Leading the team was Rhaegar, a prodigious Lemnorian scholar driven by an insatiable hunger for truth. Their assignment had seemed routine at first, a deep dive into historical military records for their interspecies relations course. But the deeper they dug, the more the official narrative unraveled. Humanity, they'd been taught, was a minor player on the galactic stage, a young race confined to a handful of outlying star systems. Yet the records told a different story. Scattered fragments hinted at a pivotal human role in the Antares conflict, a brutal war the Lemnorian youths had barely heard of. Redacted files, classified reports, entire battles scrubbed from the public record, the gaps formed an unmistakable pattern. Risking expulsion or worse, Rhaegar sliced into the Academy's secure data vaults. What they found defied belief. Humanity hadn't just fought in the Antares conflict, they'd single-handedly broken the back of the Kryn Imperium. Grainy video logs showed human soldiers, hopelessly outnumbered, unleashing guerrilla tactics with a ferocity that stunned the galaxy. Most terrifying were the tales of Gerald Collins, a legendary warrior who refused to die, dragging his shattered body from one bloody victory to the next. The records painted a chilling picture. Humans didn't just fight to win, they fought as if losing was incomprehensible. Every fallen comrade only fueled their righteous fury. In battle after battle, the Kryn Imperium learned that it was better to die by your own hand than be taken alive by humans. To the shock of Rhaegar's team, the Imperium's voluntary withdrawal from Antares had been a thinly veiled surrender, a desperate attempt to avoid extinction at the hands of an inferior race. The implications crashed through the room like bomb blasts. If this was what a single human colony could do, what might a united Earth unleash? The powers that be had buried the truth, praying that humans would never discover their own terrifying potential. But now the secret was out. As Rhaegar's fingers flew across the console, copying every scrap of data, they knew there was no turning back. The revelation could shatter the galaxy, but the cost of silence was too high. The universe deserved to know the truth about humanity, and to fear what was coming next. In the weeks that followed, Rhaegar and his team threw themselves into their clandestine research with a fervor that bordered on obsession. Sleep became a luxury as they pored over every scrap of data they could unearth about Gerald Collins and the enigmatic specters. Liara, in particular, seemed to wrestle with the implications of their findings. "If this is all true," she murmured one night, her eyes haunted by the flickering data streams, "then everything we've been taught is a lie. The Galactic Council, the academies, the textbooks, all of it." Rhaegar could only nod, his own knees going weak. Each new revelation seemed to peel back another layer of a vast conspiracy, exposing a galaxy built on secrets and fear. It was almost a relief when Zek finally made contact, his voice crackling over a scrambled comm channel. "I've got someone you need to meet," he said without preamble. "A Kryn general, fought against the humans at Antares. And trust me, he's got stories you need to hear." The meeting with General Karzon was a tense affair, conducted in the shadows of a seedy spaceport dive. The old Kryn warrior still bore the scars of ancient battles, his exoskeleton pitted and scorched. "You want to know about Gerald Collins?" Karzon rasped, his mandibles twitching. "I'll tell you, that human, he was a demon on the battlefield. I saw him take on an entire Kryn platoon single-handed. Blades, bullets, damn near took a plasma cannon to the face. Nothing could stop him." Rhaegar leaned forward, his heart's pounding. "But why bury the truth? Why hide what the humans did?" Karzon let out a bitter chitter laugh. "You think the Council wants the galaxy to know that a bunch of hairless apes brought the Imperium to its knees? That if the humans ever united, they could wipe us all out? No, better to ban them from fighting, shove them to the fringes, and pray they never figure out what they're capable of." Those words echoed in Rhaegar's mind as he laid out a daring plan to his team, to track down Collins himself, to hear the truth from the source. It was a reckless gambit, but one they all knew they had to take. But even as they plotted and planned, trouble was brewing. Whispers of their unauthorized data access had reached the Academy's administration, sparking a quiet but urgent investigation. Suddenly, every shadow seemed to hide a potential informant, every comm channel a trap waiting to be sprung. Liara was the first to voice the fear that gnawed at them all. "What if we're wrong?" she asked, her voice tight with tension. "What if the truth is buried for a reason? What if revealing it does more harm than good?" Rhaegar had no easy answers, but he knew one thing for certain. The path they had chosen would not be an easy one. As they worked to secure a ship and chart a course to the distant human colony, he could feel the weight of the galaxy's secrets bearing down on them all. It was in the midst of these preparations that the mysterious message arrived. The sender identified herself only as Agent Ziva, claiming to represent a faction within the Galactic Council itself. "I know what you seek," the message read, "and I can help you find it, but you must trust me." Rhaegar stared at the cryptic words, a mixture of hope and suspicion warring within him. An ally on the council could be an invaluable asset, but what if it was a trap? Could they afford to trust a faceless stranger with so much at stake? He glanced around at his team, at Liara, her face etched with worry, at the others, exhausted but determined. They had come too far to turn back now. With a deep breath, Rhaegar made his decision. His fingers flew over the console, tapping out a response to the enigmatic Agent Ziva. "We're in," he wrote. "Tell us what we need to do." As he hit send, Rhaegar felt a curious mix of fear and exhilaration. They were about to embark on a journey into the unknown, a quest that could change the face of the galaxy forever. And though the path ahead was shrouded in shadow, one thing was clear. There could be no turning back now. The encrypted message from Agent Ziva burned in Rhaegar's mind as he piloted the small, nondescript vessel through the swirling nebula. His team huddled around the cramped cockpit, their eyes fixed on the screen as they navigated the treacherous cosmic dust. "Proximity alert," Liara called out, her fingers dancing across the sensor readouts. "Patrol cruiser, bearing 047. Rhaegar's hearts hammered as he executed a series of evasive maneuvers, steering their ship behind a dense cluster of asteroids. For endless moments, they waited in tense silence, until finally the patrol cruiser's engine signature faded into the distance. "That was too close," Zek muttered, his scales rippling with nervous energy. As the days stretched into weeks, Rhaegar immersed himself in the recovered files on Gerald Collins and the Spectres. He pored over grainy battle footage, decrypted mission logs, and fragmented after-action reports. The more he learned, the more his perception of humanity shifted. One night, as the rest of the team slept, Rhaegar found Liara in the ship's tiny galley. She nursed a steaming cup of Lemnorian tea, her eyes distant and troubled. "Can't sleep?" Rhaegar asked softly. Liara shook her head. "I keep thinking about what we're doing, the risk we're taking. Is it worth it?" Rhaegar settled beside her, their shoulders nearly touching in the cramped space. "I believe it is," he said. "The truth matters, Liara, no matter how uncomfortable or dangerous it might be." She met his gaze, a spark of understanding passing between them. "I know," she whispered. "I'm just scared." "Me too," Rhaegar admitted, surprising himself with his honesty. As they neared the human colony, the stark reality of their situation hit home. Nova Terra loomed before them, a rugged world of harsh deserts and windswept plateaus. The contrast to Lemnoria's gleaming spires and manicured gardens was jarring. They touched down on the outskirts of the main settlement, a sprawling collection of prefab structures and repurposed freighter hulls. Dust swirled around their feet as they disembarked, the acrid tang of unfamiliar atmosphere burning their lungs. "Remember," Rhaegar cautioned, "we're just a group of xenoanthropology students on a cultural exchange. Nothing more." They made their way through the bustling marketplace, marveling at the ingenuity on display. Humans had adapted cast-off alien tech to suit their needs, cobbling together solutions that defied conventional engineering. It took 3 days of careful inquiries and discreet observation before they pinpointed Collins's residence. The old soldier's home was a converted cargo container perched on a rocky outcropping, offering a commanding view of the surrounding badlands. Rhaegar's palms were slick with nervous sweat as he approached the weathered door. He raised a hand to knock, only to freeze as the door swung open of its own accord. "I was wondering when you'd work up the nerve to come knocking," a gruff voice called from within. "Well, don't just stand there gawking. Come in before you let all the sand inside." Exchanging nervous glances, Rhaegar and his team filed into the dimly lit interior. Gerald Collins sat in a battered hover chair, his weathered face a map of old scars and new wrinkles. Despite his advanced age, his eyes were sharp and alert, studying each of the alien visitors in turn. "So," Collins said, leaning forward slightly, "you want to know about the war?" It wasn't a question. Rhaegar swallowed hard, finding his voice. "Yes, sir. We've learned things. Things that contradict everything we've been taught about humanity's role in galactic affairs." Collins barked out a harsh laugh. "I bet you have. Well, pull up a seat. This is going to take a while." For hours they listened as Collins recounted tales of desperate battles and improbable victories. He spoke of comrades lost and found, of improvised weapons cobbled together from scrap, of last stands that became legends. "We didn't fight because we wanted to," Collins said, his voice growing hoarse. "We fought because we had to, because the alternative was extinction." As the old soldier demonstrated some of the physical adaptations that had made humans so formidable on the battlefield, Rhaegar felt a chill run down his spine. The casual ease with which Collins endured pain, his lightning-fast reflexes despite his age, it was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. When they finally emerged from Collins's home, the twin suns of Nova Terra were setting, painting the sky in the shades of crimson and gold. Rhaegar's mind raced with all they had learned, the implications threatening to overwhelm him. "We can't keep this hidden," Zek insisted as they made their way back to their ship. "The galaxy needs to know the truth." Liara shook her head. "But at what cost? Think of the chaos this could cause." Before Rhaegar could respond, a priority alert chimed on his comm unit. His blood ran cold as he read the message from the Academy administration. "We've been discovered," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "They're threatening expulsion, maybe worse." The weight of their choices pressed down on Rhaegar as he looked at his team. They had come so far, risked so much. Now, standing on the precipice of a decision that could reshape galactic society, he realized that their journey was just the beginning. The fate of human-alien relations hung in the balance, and the choice of what to do next rested squarely on their shoulders. With a grim nod, he activated his comm unit. "Agent Ziva," he said, his voice low, "we need your help." The response came swiftly, a set of coordinates flashing across the screen. As they made their way through Nova Terra's winding streets, Rhaegar's mind raced. The threat of expulsion loomed large, but it paled in comparison to the weight of what they had uncovered. The rendezvous point was a dimly lit cargo bay, stacks of shipping containers casting long shadows. A hooded figure emerged from the darkness, Agent Ziva, her features obscured by a holographic mask. "You've stirred up quite the hornet's nest," she said, her voice distorted. "But you're not alone in your quest for truth." Ziva led them deeper into the maze of containers, revealing a hidden chamber. Inside, a tall, imposing alien waited, Rhaegar, his scales gleaming in the low light. "Welcome, young scholars," Rhaegar rumbled. "I represent the Prometheans, a group within the Council dedicated to, shall we say, a more enlightened approach to galactic security." Rhaegar listened intently as Rhaegar laid out their proposition. The Prometheans believed that suppressing humanity's true nature was a grave mistake, one that left the galaxy vulnerable. With the team's evidence and Collins's testimony, they could force a reevaluation of human integration. "We can protect you," Rhaegar said, his eyes gleaming. "Provide resources, open doors. All we ask is that you continue your work under our guidance." Liara bristled visibly. "And become pawns in your political game?" she hissed. "We should release the information ourselves, responsibly." Zek, however, leaned forward eagerly. "Think of the influence we'd have," he argued. "We could shape galactic policy." The team's unity fractured as heated debate erupted. Rhaegar felt torn, seeing the merit in both arguments. Before he could respond, his comm unit chimed urgently. A grainy hologram flickered to life. Commander Arcade, the Academy's head of security. His face was a mask of cold fury. "I know what you've done," Arcade snarled. "Your little field trip to Nova Terra? Consider yourselves officially under investigation." The transmission cut off abruptly. Rigor's hearts pounded as he met his team's panicked gazes. "We're out of time," he said grimly. "We need to act now." With trembling fingers, Rigor pulled up the contact information for Rena, the infamous investigative journalist. It was a risky move, but their options were rapidly dwindling. "Rena," he said when the call connected. "My name is Reger. I have a story that will shake the foundations of the galaxy." There was a long pause. "I've heard that line before, kid," Rena's voice drawled. "What makes you so special?" In response, Reger played the transmission from Collins, a rallying cry for humanity to reclaim its place among the stars. Rena's breath caught audibly. "Well," she said after a moment, "I think we need to talk." They barely had time to arrange a meeting before alarms blared throughout the station. Commander Arcade's forces had arrived. What followed was a frantic chase through Lemnoria's gleaming corridors. Reger's team ducked and weaved through startled crowds, narrowly avoiding stun bolts from Arcade's pursuing agents. "This way," Zek shouted, leading them down a maintenance shaft. They emerged in Lemnoria's underbelly, a maze of grimy alleyways and flickering neon. As they huddled in a dingy safe house, exhausted and on edge, Rigor faced the gravity of their situation. They were now fugitives, cut off from the academic world they had known. The Prometheans offered a lifeline, but at what cost? Liara's eyes pleaded with him, while Zek practically vibrated with anticipation. The fate of humanity's place in the galaxy hung in the balance. Reger took a deep breath and made his choice. "Contact Ricard," he said quietly. Tell him we're in." As Zek triumphantly relayed the message, Liara's face fell. Reger squeezed her hand, hoping she understood. Sometimes, to reveal the truth, you had to work from within the shadows. The comm unit crackled to life. Rena's voice came through, tense and urgent. "I hope you're ready, kid," she said, "because this story, it's about to change everything." "Because this story, it's about to change everything." Rena's words hung in the air as alarms blared through the station. Reger's comm unit flashed with urgent warnings. Commander Arcade's forces were closing in fast. "Move!" Reger shouted, shoving his team towards the exit. They burst into Lemnoria's corridors, dodging startled civilians as stun bolts sizzled past their heads. Zek took point, his reptilian senses guiding them through the labyrinth of passageways. "This way!" he hissed, diving into a maintenance shaft. They emerged in Lemnoria's grimy underbelly, a stark contrast to the gleaming facades above. Liara stumbled, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Reger hauled her to her feet, half dragging her as they weaved through neon-lit alleyways. The sounds of pursuit echoed behind them, growing closer with each passing moment. A figure materialized from the shadows, beckoning urgently. "In here!" Agent Ziva's distorted voice called. They followed her into a hidden alcove, a false wall sliding shut behind them. The safe house was cramped and dimly lit, reeking of stale air and nervous sweat. Reger's team huddled together, hearts pounding as footsteps thundered past their hiding spot. "That was too close," Liara whispered, her eyes wide with fear. Ziva's holographic mask flickered, revealing glimpses of her true features. "We don't have much time," she said. "Arcade's locked down the entire station. You need to get off-world now." Reger's mind raced. They were fugitives now, cut off from everything they'd known. The gravity of their situation pressed down on him like a physical weight. "The Prometheans," Zek said eagerly. "They can help us, right?" Liara bristled visibly. "We can't trust them," she hissed. "We don't know their true agenda." Before the argument could escalate, the safe house door slid open. Ricard ducked his massive frame through the entrance, his scales glinting in the low light. "Your academic careers are over," he rumbled, "but your real work is just beginning. We can offer you protection, resources, a chance to change galactic history." Zek's eyes gleamed with excitement, while Liara's face hardened into a mask of distrust. Rhaegor felt torn between his teammates, seeing merit in both perspectives. A distant explosion rocked the station. Ziva's comm unit crackled to life, relaying frantic reports of Arkad's strike teams raiding suspected rebel hideouts across the capital. "We're out of time," Rhaegar growled. "Come with us now, or face Arkad's interrogators alone." Rhaegar met Liara's pleading gaze, then Zek's eager nod. He took a deep breath and made his choice. "We're in," he said quietly. What followed was a blur of furtive movement through Lemnoria's shadowy underbelly. Rhaegar's operatives led them through a maze of secret passages and hidden lifts. Twice they barely avoided Arkad's patrols, huddling in suffocating silence as armored boots marched past. They emerged in a grimy spaceport on the station's outer ring. A battered freighter waited, its engines already warming up. "This will take you to the Jalkath system," Rhaegar explained. "It's remote, outside council jurisdiction. You'll be safe there while we prepare our next move." As they boarded, Rhaegar caught a glimpse of Liara's face. The hurt and betrayal in her eyes cut him to the core, but there was no time for explanations or apologies. The freighter lurched into motion, accelerating away from Lemnoria's gleaming spires. Rhaegar allowed himself a moment of relief, only for alarms to shriek through the ship. "Multiple contacts," the pilot shouted. "Advanced fighters, closing fast." Arkad had anticipated their escape. Sleek mercenary ships swarmed around them, weapons blazing. The freighter shuddered under the assault, shields failing rapidly. "We're not going to make it," Liara said, her voice tight with fear. Rhaegar's eyes darted to the ship's systems readout. A desperate plan formed in his mind. "Overload the engines," he ordered. "Now!" The pilot hesitated for a split second, then complied. Warning klaxons blared as the freighter's reactor core went critical. A wave of searing radiation burst outward, frying the mercenaries' systems. Both hunter and prey tumbled out of control, spiraling towards a desolate world below. Rhaegar gripped his restraints as the freighter plummeted through the atmosphere, the hull glowing cherry red with friction. They hit hard, skidding across a barren plain of crimson dust. When the ship finally ground to a halt, an eerie silence fell. Rhaegar pried himself from his seat, checking his teammates for injuries. They'd survived, barely. But as he surveyed the bleak landscape outside, a grim realization set in. They were stranded on an alien world, far from any help, and their troubles were only beginning. Their troubles were only just starting. Rhaegar surveyed the alien landscape, his mind racing. The crimson dust stretched to the horizon, broken only by jagged rock formations. He turned to his teammates, both miraculously alive but battered. "We need to move," he said, helping Liara to her feet. "This crash will draw attention." They salvaged what they could from the wreckage: emergency rations, a portable comm unit, and a handful of energy cells. As they trudged across the barren plain, Rhaegar's thoughts drifted to their ultimate goal: Avalon. Days blurred together as they navigated the hostile terrain. Water was scarce, and strange, chitinous creatures stalked them in the night. Zek's survival skills proved invaluable, but tensions ran high. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they crested a ridge and saw it, a sprawling outpost of mismatched structures and flickering neon. The warp gate to Avalon loomed in the distance, a shimmering portal of possibility. "There," Rhaegar pointed, "our ticket out of here." But as they approached the outpost's outskirts, reality set in. Rough-looking individuals of various species eyed them suspiciously. This was no haven. It was a den of cutthroats and criminals. "We need an edge," Liara whispered. "Someone with influence." Rhaegar nodded grimly. "I've heard rumors of a smuggler kingpin named Kravox. If anyone can get us through that gate, it's him." They made discreet inquiries, careful not to draw too much attention. Finally, a one-eyed Traxian bartender gave them directions to Kravox's compound, for a price. The compound was a fortress of scavenged starship parts. Heavily armed guards stopped them at the gate. "We seek an audience with Kravox," Rhaegar announced. "We have information that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy." After a tense wait, they were escorted inside. Kravox, a massive scaled creature with cybernetic implants, lounged on a throne of salvaged tech. "You have 1 minute to impress me," he rumbled. Rhaegor took a deep breath and laid out their proposal. He spoke of humanity's hidden potential, of the data they had uncovered, and the impact it could have. Kravox's eyes narrowed with interest. "Intriguing," he said, "but words are cheap. Prove your worth and we'll talk terms." Kravox outlined a daring heist, the theft of prototype antimatter warheads from a nearby amalgam mining facility. Rhaegor exchanged a worried glance with Liara, but they both knew they had no choice. "We'll do it," Rhaegar said. Kravox grinned, revealing rows of sharp teeth. "Excellent. My sister Zora will accompany you. Consider it insurance." Zora materialized from the shadows, a lithe figure with state-of-the-art sniper gear. Her eyes gleamed with scarcely controlled excitement. "Let's see if you aliens can keep up," she purred. The next hours were a whirlwind of preparation. Zora's knowledge of the facility's layout was crucial as they planned their infiltration. As night fell, they made their move. Rhaegor's heart pounded as they approached the perimeter. Zora's marksmanship proved invaluable, silently eliminating sentries. They breached the outer defenses, Liara's tech skills bypassing security protocols. They located the warhead storage deep within the facility. As Rhaegar worked to secure the volatile payload, alarms blared. "We've got company!" Zora shouted, her rifle already singing. Rhaegar's blood ran cold as he recognized the commanding voice echoing through the facility. "Find them!" Commander Arkad bellowed. "No one leaves alive!" What had been a precision heist devolved into a desperate fight for survival. Rhaegar and Liara improvised weapons and distractions, their academic minds working overtime to stay ahead of Arkad's elite forces. In a heart-stopping moment, Zora was pinned down, a plasma bolt searing her side. Without hesitation, Liara sprinted from cover, dragging the wounded mercenary to safety. "I thought you academics were soft," Zora gasped, impressed. They fought their way to the extraction point, Arkad's forces hot on their heels. A battered smuggler ship awaited them, piloted by one of Kravox's crew. As they lifted off, Rhaegar allowed himself a moment of hope. That hope was short-lived. As they approached Kravox's compound, they saw it was under siege. Arkad had anticipated their move. "We can't land," the pilot warned. "It's a kill box down there." Zora's face hardened with tenacity. "Get as close as you can to the main hangar," she ordered. Before anyone could stop her, Zora grabbed a handful of grenades and leapt from the ship. She hit the ground running, drawing fire away from their approach. "Go!" she shouted over the comm. "Complete the mission!" Tears stung Rhaegar's eyes as they watched Zora disappear into the chaos below. A massive explosion rocked the compound, clearing their path to the hangar. They touched down to find Kravox already boarding a heavily modified stealth freighter. His eyes blazed with a mix of grief and fury. "My sister?" he asked, already knowing the answer. Rhaegar shook his head. Kravox's massive fist slammed into the hull, leaving a sizable dent. "Then we make her sacrifice count," he growled. "Show me this proof of yours." Rhaegar activated a small holoprojector. The image of Gerald Collins flickered to life, his message clear and damning. Kravox's eyes widened. "Very well," he said. "You've earned your passage to Avalon." As they prepared for launch, Arkad's forces burst into the hangar. In the ensuing firefight, Rhaegar and Liara boarded the freighter. Kravox laid down suppressing fire, his own crew taking heavy losses to ensure their escape. The ship rocketed into the sky, weaving through anti-aircraft fire. As they broke atmosphere, Rhaegar allowed himself a moment to breathe. He found Liara's hand and squeezed it tight. "We made it," he whispered. But their journey was just the beginning. As the stars streaked past, Rhaegar knew the true test still lay ahead. Avalon awaited, and with it, the power to reshape the galaxy itself. The stealth freighter emerged from hyperspace, revealing Avalon's gleaming orbital stations. Rhaegar exhaled slowly, his shoulders relaxing for the first time in days. Beside him, Liara's eyes widened at the sight of the neutral colony world. "We made it," she whispered, echoing Rhaegar's earlier sentiment. Krevox's gravelly voice came over the ship's intercom. Don't celebrate yet. Docking procedures here are strict. Keep your heads down and let me do the talking. As they maneuvered towards the spaceport, Rigor's relief gave way to a gnawing anxiety. They had escaped Arcade for now, but what awaited them on Avalon? The landing was uneventful, almost anticlimactic after their harrowing journey. As they disembarked, Krevox pulled Rigor aside. I've got contacts here, he rumbled. One name you should know, Uldor. He's an old Calibri, runs the local news network. If anyone can help spread your story, it's him. Rigor nodded gratefully. Thank you, Krevox, for everything. The smuggler's expression hardened. Don't thank me yet. Your troubles are far from... He stopped himself, shaking his head. Just watch your back. As Krevox lumbered away, Liara approached Rigor, her face etched with concern. I've been monitoring local broadcasts, she said, holding up her datapad. There's been a development. A journalist named Reyna has gone missing. Rigor frowned. How is that connected to us? She was investigating illegal weapons trade. Given what we know... Liara's voice trailed off. Before Rigor could respond, a commotion erupted at the far end of the spaceport. Alarms blared as armored figures poured through the security checkpoints. It's Arcade, Liara gasped. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air. Civilians screamed, diving for cover. Rigor grabbed Liara's arm, pulling her behind a row of cargo containers. How did they find us so quickly? Liara shouted over the chaos. Rigor's mind raced. It doesn't matter. We need to move. They sprinted through the panicked crowd, weaving between fleeing travelers and overturned luggage. A stray shot clipped a nearby fuel cell, sending a fireball billowing into the sky. Through the smoke, Rigor spotted Krevox's bulky form. The smuggler had commandeered a transport skiff, gesturing urgently for them to join him. Go! Krevox roared as they clambered aboard. I'll draw their fire. The skiff accelerated away from the spaceport, Arcade's forces in hot pursuit. Krevox piloted recklessly, skimming mere meters above Avalon's neon-lit streets. We need somewhere to hide, Liara said, gripping the skiff's railing. Krevox grunted in agreement. I know a place. Hold on. He veered sharply, diving into a narrow alleyway. The skiff's hull screeched against the walls, showering sparks. They emerged in a dimly lit courtyard, coming to an abrupt stop before an unmarked building. Inside, Krevox ordered. Now! They hurried through the entrance. The interior was a cluttered newsroom, holographic displays flickering with breaking stories of the spaceport attack. An aging Calibri looked up from a central desk, his multifaceted eyes narrowing. Krevox, what is the meaning of this intrusion? No time for pleasantries, Uldor, Krevox growled. These two have a story that'll make your career. But first, we need your help. Uldor's antennae twitched skeptically. And why should I believe? Rigor stepped forward, activating the holo projector. Gerald Collins's face materialized, his damning message echoing through the newsroom. Uldor's mandibles clicked in shock. By the void, this changes everything. A distant explosion rocked the building. Krevox moved to the window, his cybernetic eye whirring as it zoomed in on the street below. Arcade's forces are sweeping the area, he reported grimly. We need to move. Uldor's expression hardened with purpose. I have contacts in the activist underground. They can provide safe haven while we verify your story. As they prepared to leave, Liara caught Rigor's arm. Are you sure about this? She whispered. We're getting involved with some dangerous people. Rigor met her gaze, his lips pursed. We don't have a choice. We have to see this through no matter what it takes. They slipped out through a hidden passage, leaving the newsroom behind. As they delved deeper into Avalon's shadowy underbelly, Rigor couldn't shake the feeling that they were crossing a line, one they might not be able to come back from. Rigor's heart pounded as he followed Uldor through a maze of dimly lit corridors. The acrid smell of ozone and burning plastics lingered in the air, a reminder of their narrow escape from Arcade's forces. Liara kept pace beside him, her eyes darting warily at every shadow. They emerged into a cavernous underground chamber, filled with a motley assortment of beings. Humans mingled with various alien species, all united by a common purpose: resistance against corporate tyranny. A tall, purple-skinned woman with intricate facial markings stepped forward. "I am Thana," she said, her voice carrying a hint of steel. "Welcome to our humble rebellion." Over the next few hours, Rhaegar and Liara found themselves immersed in a whirlwind of strategy sessions and covert planning. Thana's network of activists proved invaluable, providing detailed schematics of Massigan Corporation's lunar mining base. "Our primary objective," Rhaegar explained, gesturing to a holographic display, "is to uncover the truth about Rhaena's disappearance, but we can't ignore the larger implications here." Liara nodded grimly. "If Massigan is truly a front for Amalgam Corporation, we could be looking at a conspiracy that spans the entire galaxy." As they finalized their infiltration plan, Kravox approached, his cybernetic eye whirring softly. "I've procured maintenance crew uniforms and credentials," he rumbled. "It won't fool them for long, but it should get you inside." The journey to the lunar base was tense, each moment fraught with the possibility of discovery. As their stolen maintenance shuttle docked, Rhaegar took a deep breath, steadying his nerves. "Remember," he whispered to Liara, "we're just here to fix the life support systems. Act natural." They made it past the initial security checkpoints without incident. But as they delved deeper into the facility's restricted levels, alarms blared. Security drones swarmed from hidden alcoves, their weapons primed. "So much for the subtle approach," Liara muttered, ducking behind a bulkhead as plasma bolts sizzled past. Rhaegar's academic training fell away as instinct took over. He vaulted over a console, using a makeshift weapon cobbled together from maintenance tools to short-circuit two approaching drones. They fought their way through waves of mechanical sentries and hired guns, each chamber bringing them closer to the facility's core. Sweat stung Rhaegar's eyes as he worked to bypass a heavily encrypted door. "Liara!" he shouted over the din of battle. "I need cover!" She responded with pinpoint accuracy, her improvised blaster taking down mercenaries with surgical precision. The door slid open, revealing the main operations hub. As Kravox and Thana's rebels engaged the bulk of the security forces, Liara dove for the central computer banks. Her fingers flew across holographic interfaces, sifting through terabytes of data. "Rhaegar," she called, her voice tight with urgency. "You need to see this." He joined her, his eyes widening as he absorbed the information scrolling across the screen. Financial records, shipping manifests, and classified communications painted a damning picture. "Amalgam," Rhaegar breathed. "They're using Massigan as a front to strip mine Avalon. And when Rhaena got too close..." A map flashed on the screen, highlighting a secured lab complex deep within the lunar base. Rhaegar's expression resolute as he realized the implications. "That's where they're holding her," he said. "We need to move, now." The assault on the high-security wing was brutal. Amalgam's paramilitary forces fought with the desperation of those protecting dark secrets. Rhaegar felt something primal awaken within him as he led the charge, his makeshift weapon leaving a trail of destruction. They breached the final set of blast doors to find a scene of horror. Rhaena lay strapped to a medical table, her body bearing the marks of prolonged interrogation. Thana rushed to her sister's side, tears streaming down her face as she worked to free her. Rhaegar allowed himself a moment of triumph, but it was short-lived. A priority transmission crackled over the facility's speakers, chilling him to the bone. "Attention all personnel," a cold, familiar voice announced. "This is Commander Arkad. By order of Galactic Security, this facility is to be neutralized. Prepare for orbital bombardment." The ground shook as the first salvo struck. Rhaegar met Liara's gaze, a silent understanding passing between them. They had come too far to fail now. "Everyone to the hangar," Rhaegar shouted. "We're getting off this rock!" As they raced through collapsing corridors, Rhaegar knew their ordeal was not nearly finished. The truth they had uncovered would shake the foundations of galactic society. And somewhere above, Arkad waited, determined to silence them at any cost. The stolen maintenance shuttle shuddered as it broke atmosphere, leaving the chaos of the lunar base behind. Rhaegar slumped against the bulkhead, exhaustion etched on his face. Beside him, Liara tended to Rishna's wounds, her hands steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. "We need to get this information out," Rhaegar said, his voice hoarse. "The whole galaxy needs to know what Amalgam's been doing." Kravox grunted from the pilot's seat. "And paint an even bigger target on our backs? You've got a death wish, kid." Before Rhaegar could respond, the shuttle's comm system crackled to life. Jerry Collins's face appeared on the display, his expression grim. "I've been monitoring the situation," Collins said. "You've stirred up one hell of a hornet's nest, but we've got bigger problems now." He outlined the unfolding crisis, the arrest of Commander Arkad, the revelation of Supreme Counselor Maltak's involvement, and the violent coup unfolding on Lemnoria. Rhaegar's mind reeled. "What do we do now?" Collins's eyes hardened. "You come to Novaterra. I can offer you sanctuary, but there's a price." As the shuttle changed course, Rhaegar felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. They had exposed the truth, but at what cost? Days later on Novaterra, Rhaegar found himself gasping for breath as he completed another punishing set of exercises. Collins's training pushed him to limits he never knew he possessed. "Again," Collins barked, his face impassive. Rhaegar gritted his teeth and complied, muscles screaming in protest. Nearby, Liara and the others endured their own grueling regimens. In stolen moments between training sessions, they monitored the escalating conflict on Lemnonia. Maltak's forces, bolstered by the Promethean separatists, tightened their grip on the planet's defenses. Zek's face appeared in propaganda broadcasts, his eyes burning with misguided conviction. As reports of Maltak's ultimatum reached them, Rhaegar felt a familiar restlessness gnaw at him. "We can't just sit here while he threatens to level entire cities," he said to Liara. She met his gaze, her expression conflicted. "And what would you have us do? We've seen what humans are capable of in combat. Do we really want to unleash that on Lemnoria?" Before Rhaegar could answer, Collins burst into the room. "The Council's made contact," he said, his voice taut with urgency. "They want our help." In a secure briefing room, Collins laid out the plan. A human strike force would target Maltak's orbital defenses, creating an opening for a decisive blow. "And where do we fit into this?" Rhaegar asked. Collins' eyes glinted. "You're our ace in the hole. Your broadcast made waves, kid. The Council thinks you might be able to talk Maltak down." As the strike force prepared for deployment, Rhaegar wrestled with the implications. He had wanted to expose the truth, but this was war. Liara found him staring out at Novaterra's sprawling cityscape. "We don't have to do this their way," she said softly. "There's always another path." Rhaegar turned to her, seeing the strength and conviction in her eyes. He nodded slowly, an idea forming. As Collins's team launched their assault on Maltak's defenses, Rhaegar prepared for a different kind of battle. With Liara's help, he crafted a message, not of threats or ultimatums, but of unity and shared purpose. The signal cut through Maltak's jamming efforts, reaching every corner of Lemnoria. Rhaegar's face filled view screens across the planet as he spoke. "People of Lemnoria, of the Galactic Council, of every world touched by this conflict," he began, his voice steady. "We stand at a crossroads." His words rang out as Collins's forces engaged Maltak's fleet in orbit. On the planet's surface, Zek paused in the midst of coordinating an attack, transfixed by Rhaegar's broadcast. In his command center, Maltak's finger hovered over the launch controls for his doomsday weapons. He hesitated, Rhaegar's words giving him pause. The future of the galaxy hung in the balance as Rhaegar's message reached its crescendo, a defiant call for peace in the face of overwhelming odds. The broadcast faded, leaving Rhaegar and Liara in tense silence. For a moment, it seemed the galaxy held its breath. Then chaos erupted. Reports flooded in of skirmishes across Lemnoria, Maltak's forces fracturing as doubt spread. Within hours, the coup crumbled. Maltak himself was taken into custody, his expression unreadable as he was led away in restraints. Days later, Rhaegar found himself on Avalon, watching as Maltak was brought before a hastily assembled tribunal. The courtroom buzzed with nervous energy, Collins and other human advisors presiding over the proceedings. As the trial began, Liara burst through the doors, datapad clutched in her hand. "Wait!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the murmur of the crowd. "There's something you need to see." Rhaegar watched in stunned silence as Liara presented her findings. Financial records, intercepted communications, and classified reports painted a chilling picture. Amalgam Corporation had wormed its way into the highest echelons of the Galactic Council, manipulating events to push humanity towards war. Maltak's face contorted with a mix of anguish and vindication. "I tried to stop it," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I thought I could protect us all." The courtroom erupted into pandemonium. In the chaos, Rhaegar noticed movement in the shadows. A sleek, matte black weapon glinted in the harsh light. "Liara, get down!" he shouted, lunging towards her. The air filled with the sizzle of plasma bolts and acrid smoke. Amalgam's strike team moved with ruthless efficiency, cutting down key witnesses before anyone could react. Rhaegar's mind raced as he dragged Liara behind an overturned table. The staccato burst of human weapons joined the fray as Collins and his specters engaged the assassins. Through the haze, Rhaegar saw Maltak stagger, crimson blossoming across his chest. The former counselor locked eyes with Liara, using his last moments to shield her from a barrage of fire. "I'm sorry," Maltak gasped, his life ebbing away. "The burden, it was too much. You must understand. The stakes." His words trailed off as his eyes glazed over. Liara's expression hardened. A newfound persistence etched on her features. The firefight intensified, but a familiar face appeared through the smoke. Zek, his uniform torn and bloodied, fought his way to Rhaegar's side. "I was wrong," Zek shouted over the din of battle. "Rikar, he's gone too far. I can't be part of this anymore." Before Rhaegar could respond, the ground shook violently. A series of explosions rocked the entire colony, shattering windows and sending debris raining down. "Promethean bombs!" Collins bellowed, his voice carrying over the carnage. "We need to evacuate! Now!" Rhaegar's world narrowed to a series of desperate moments. He and Liara raced through burning streets, pulling survivors from crumbling buildings. The acrid stench of smoke filled his lungs as they fought their way towards the starport. "Oe?" Kravox's gruff voice crackled over their comms. "I've got a transport prepped, but we're running out of time. Rikar's forces are closing in." They reached the landing pad to find it under heavy assault. Collins and his specters fought a desperate holding action, buying time for civilians to board the waiting ships. Liara turned to Rhaegar, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "You have to go," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Someone needs to tell our story, to make sure this wasn't for nothing." "I'm not leaving you," Rhaegar protested, but Liara silenced him with a fierce embrace. "You have to," she whispered. "For all of us." With a final lingering look, Liara turned and raced back towards the inferno. Rhaegar watched her disappear into the smoke, his heart clenching. Kravox's ship lifted off, narrowly avoiding a barrage of anti-aircraft fire. As Avalon receded below them, Rhaegar could only watch in horror as his adopted home burned. The weary survivors found refuge among sympathetic colonies, but Rhaegar knew their ordeal was nowhere near the end. As he began to compile his account of these pivotal events, he realized the true challenge lay ahead, forging a new path for humanity among the stars, one that balanced their unique strengths with the need for peace. The embers of Avalon still glowed in the distance, a reminder of all they had lost, and all they still had to fight for.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.